5 ways to make money writing now.
Let's talk about money. And if you're a writer, likely that's one of the least favorite things you like to hear when it comes to your writing, because so many of us out there, myself included at many times in my life, have been confused or are still confused on how to turn your writing into cash. And I remember being in my creative writing program, and all of us were just so worried that once we get out of this, are we going to be able to make a living? And we were people who were paying money actively per semester to learn that skill. So we were very nervous about that, and it's understandable. And if that's at all akin to something you felt or had an intimation of, the idea of making money and how are you going to do that, then this is the video for you. Because in this video, I will be giving you 5 different ways that you can make money with your writing. But before I get into these 5 options, I want to ask you a really quick but important question. Why do you write? Is it because you want to make money? Are you really good at it, so you've just decided it's a pretty good career option for you? Do you like the type of work involved, or do you look at it from more of an art perspective and you want to write because there's something you want to say about yourself and the world around you? Now that's an important question, and I think a bigger one than how to make money. And the reason I ask that question is because depending on your answer, the way that you can make money writing changes considerably. There are many ways to categorize all the different options of utilizing your writing for cash, but I find myself placing almost every money-making venture into 2 categories. The first being freelance writing, the second being traditional authorship. Now, let me explain these 2 just a bit more. Freelance writing is for you if it doesn't matter all that much what you write about, or if you don't mind writing for other people at least. You might be writing content for someone else's website in the form of a blog or an article, writing product descriptions for places like Amazon, or even research essays. These are all included in the category of freelance writing. You're more of a gun for hire type of writer. There are full-time writing positions in the content writing world, but I still categorize it as freelance writing because you often must start out in freelance to get entry into those fields of work. And then once you are full-time, the work involved is very similar. One example of this would be a writer for New York Times or the New York Times. You likely will need a previous body of work to show what you can do to get hired, and freelance writing articles for various websites is a really reliable way to build that previous body of work for yourself. There are a lot more options in freelance writing for making money and making money quickly than in freelance writing than into the traditional authorship path. But that doesn't mean I don't think the traditional authorship path doesn't have options. Now let's get into the traditional authorship. This is for you if you like writing something about yourself or for yourself. Let's say novels or short stories, even poems. Your options are, like I said, a bit more limited, but while I say the traditional authorship path is more limited, that doesn't mean I don't think there are no opportunities. And this is evidenced by the fact that personally, I have chosen the path of traditional authorship almost entirely, pursuing the publication of novels and the like. J.K. Rowling and Stephen King are 2 examples of some of the most recognizable names who have found success in this field of work. Now, since I think these 2 writing paths are quite different, I've decided to provide 2 options for you freelance writers out there and 3 options for you traditional authors. The reason only 2 for freelance writers is that I think there is a plethora of awesome resources for you already out there that are really easily reachable. And I often feel that those pursuing the traditional authorship path see people like James Patterson and other mega authors and are convinced that the only way to be successful is to write that super novel, right? And be that guy. But I don't think that's true in the slightest. Now, the first 2, number 5 and number 4, are going to be our freelance writing options, while numbers 3 to 1 are going to be our traditional authorship options. So let's get right into it and kick off our list. Starting at number 5, blogs. Now, starting your own blog is a very common and really good way for freelance writers to start earning money. Blogs can be about anything, and that's the magic. From cooking to motherhood to business and anything else, the possibilities are legitimately endless. And what that means is that you have a blog inside of you that someone out there wants to read, even if you don't know it yet. An important note on blogs is that money doesn't come right away, but no need to fear. Eventually, so long as you get some sort of readership, you will find opportunities to monetize your work. You can create content that is exclusive for paying members of your community. You can write posts that are sponsored by companies that want to use your platform and your influence to advertise their products and services. Even the basic traditional ad, although it's kind of white bread, but that can give you some cash. However, even more than all of that good stuff that I just mentioned, blogging will help you write often. If you do a weekly blog or a monthly blog or even especially a daily blog, it forces words out of your head and onto a website. And it will force you to write a lot, so it'll help you find your voice, which, as we all know, as writers, is very important. Also, if your blog ends up having a decent following, you will eventually be approached by companies who would like to pay you for the use of your talents. I suggest everyone have a blog, even traditional authorship seekers. What's funny is that I actually don't have a blog myself. I probably should, but I don't know. I'm lazy. I mean, I'm a lazy writer. There's a reason that I don't have a blog. I am lazy, and I don't call myself the lazy writer just for some fun little statement. I legitimately am lazy. But let me know in the comments if you think that I should start one and what you think my blog should be about. I don't know. And if you already have a blog, instead, put that in the description. Let me know what you write about, or if you want to start a blog, let me know what you're going to write about, hopefully. So moving from number 5, which is blogs and blogging, to number 4, copywriting. Now this one is huge, and I actually really like the idea of this one a lot myself. A lot of people, when they hear copywriting though, either don't know what they're talking about, or they think you're talking about legal stuff like copywriting ideas and products. But what copywriting is the writing of advertisement and promotion for companies and products. And most any material that you encounter in the wild world that has any writing on it is technically copywriting. When you go to Disney and you see all of those pamphlets, on those booths, you get your fun little Mickey Mouse hat and you're rolling around with your food, and then you see those booths with 1 million pamphlets on it, right? And then you open it and it with info, it has info about various services around the park. Well, that's copywriting. When you look at billboards and there's any text on it, that's copywriting. When you get one of those automated emails from a website that you signed up for years ago and tried to block 1,000 times, but it never works, you guessed it, that's copy. What makes copywriting great is that it can pay well and it can manifest itself in so many different ways. So it can keep you pretty engaged. Also, if you have your own blog that is gaining traction, copywriting can be the logical next step for you to up your income level. That's number 4, copywriting. And like I said, the next 3 are going to be for you traditional authorship seekers. The first 2 options could also technically be considered freelance, but I include them here because they more so serve to position you better for ultimately becoming what most people consider an author to be, which is that traditional author kind of, you got your novel published. So let's get right into it. Number 3, writing contests. Now this one is probably the most interesting one to me when it comes to being kind of fun and cool. Now essentially every time though someone gets published, they did win a contest, right? They're competing against other authors for a spot to be published, but there are dedicated contests for writers to compete in that are marketed as contests and competitions. They could be for short stories, it could be for poems. There are many different competitions, and each one with their own guidelines and submission process that you need to follow. What's awesome, really, what's awesome about these contests is that you usually get some cash right away, and it's usually somewhere between $50 to $500. So there's a really strong incentive just to send out some stuff for these contests. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but if you aren't making any money off your writing, going from no money to $50, that's a huge improvement. In addition to the initial money though, you also get published in either a website magazine, a physical magazine, or a book, depending on what you want. And you will get exposure to readers, other writers, and most importantly, publishers. What's super cool about this option is that there are so many different competitions, and that there has to be one fitting for you. If you like writing science fiction, you might submit to the Writers of the Future. Or if you like poems, there's a ton of competitions for that. The Peggy Poole Award, the National Poetry Competition. These are just a couple. The competitions I named are some of the more well-known competitions, but there are many smaller ones that you will likely be able to find if you just Google it up. I mean, I think Google is a really powerful tool, so just Google whatever niche you like to write in and go for it. And what I suggest personally is figuring out what you like to write and then just kind of finding a competition that's as closely linked to that. A lot of writers even write stuff just specifically for a competition to improve their chances of winning. Probably my favorite thing about these competitions is the straight up competition. I love competition. I love winning and I hate losing. But that makes winning all the sweeter. So you get to duke it out with other authors in a test of skills. And I mean, it's basically a straight up anime. You get to be your own main character in a show. So I think that's probably the coolest thing about the idea of these competitions. But that's number 3, writing competitions. Moving on to number 2, self-publishing online ebooks or something like that through places like Amazon. So self-publishing. This is one that I'm personally considering very much so. It's amazing. You can self-publish your own book on Amazon and have it available to readers almost immediately. And I know that everyone wants their book on the shelf. That's the dream at your local Barnes & Noble. You walk in, you grab a copy, and you walk over to whatever section you are, science fiction, fiction, mystery, whatever, and you look and there's your name. You look in the alphabetical order and you find yourself. I'd be an L. Boom, there it is. Andrew LaFleur, the book he wrote. And the thing is, even if you do get published, you might not end up on a bookshelf like that unless there's, let's say, a reprint. So it's because it found success, or if you're already a established author. But if you do the ebook kind of self-publishing, and you can set aside a little bit of money for marketing your work for yourself, you'll often have better representation publicly into the readers than if a publishing company was in charge of your advertising. And why is that? Because usually, unless you're already an established author, publishers don't really put much behind your work in the way of marketing. So that's one benefit. Unless the publishing company sees your work and they really believe in you and they're like, this is going to be the next big hit, they usually don't put much work marketing-wise. So $1,000 on your end is worth much more marketing-wise than anything most publishers are going to give you. But another benefit is that you can guarantee your work is getting out there at the end of the day. And you can publish anything you want, sort of a pure writer's world, right? You could publish anything. It's up to you because who's the publisher? You. So I think that's really great, and especially things that you send to a bunch of, let's say you're sending something to a bunch of publishers and they deny it, every single one of them. Well, what do you do with that? Do you throw it out? Maybe you can consider self-publishing it. And you can publish a bunch of things over time, and you can slowly gather your own audience. And if you do this, you can use that audience as leverage for a traditional publishing deal. You already have an audience, you have 6 books out, people are reading them, and you are no longer some random person sending your book in. You have an audience. And if you really want a physical copy to be available, there are print-on-demand options out there. So if you and whoever else wants a physical copy of your book, it's out there to buy. You get to publish your book, people get to read it, and you still get to wake up, get out of bed, look at your bookshelf, and see your book there, and anybody else who wants your book can do the same. That's number 2, self-publishing. Number 1, this one a lot of people probably can see coming, but just straight up publish that book. The dream of every writer, right? It is the most traditional of the traditional idea of publishing. You send out your manuscript to a publisher, and then you sit and pray that they want to make it into a published novel. Now, this is a very difficult way of getting published. So if you want your work out right now, I suggest not relying entirely on this route. Often people will hire an agent even to help represent them and find likely publishing opportunities. But that does cost money. I hope that one day I can be published in this fashion, but it is intimidating. Even though I don't sound all that cavalier about this option, but don't let that deter you, because people are still getting published in this fashion all the time. So don't lose hope. Keep submitting. But even if you are pursuing traditional publishing options, right? That doesn't mean you can't do the previous two. Like I said, let's say you're trying to get this kind of publishing options, right? Like the big novel getting accepted by a publisher. What I suggest doing is sending in your books for publishing while pursuing the previous two options, right? You can self-publish the things that aren't quite getting accepted so that maybe you can gather a readership. You can enter competitions to hone your skills and be kind of well known, all while looking for that deal, right? And it's the reason I chose this as number one, even though it's debatably the hardest one to get and kind of the most far off and lofty option for many people. It's because at the end of the day, it's what everyone wants. They want their book on a shelf in a bookstore. They want to be, they want to have that kind of, right, not notoriety, that kind of, public appearance. You want to be Billy Collins. You want to be Stephen King. You want to be those people, right? But for good reason, right? I know that I love going into a bookstore and I love the physical books. I mean, I smell books. I love the smell of books. Even the smell of books is great, right? But I don't smell books in the bookstore, I promise. I smell my books once I buy them and bring them home. But yes, so it's number one for a reason. I think it's because it's the number one way most people want to get published. Now, that concludes this list of 5. Number 5, blogging. Number 4, copywriting. Number 3, it being the writing contests. Number 2, self-publishing. And number 4, straight up getting your book accepted by a major publisher. Now, if this helped you, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video. If you enjoyed my content or this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to make as much stuff as I can, and your encouragement will keep me going. And thank you so much. My name is Andrew LaFleur, the Lazy Writer. If the Lazy Writer can do it, remember, so can you. And I'm out.
5 ways to make money. 5 ways to make money. 5 ways to make money writing. 5 ways. 5 ways to make money with your writing. 5 ways.